Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by. This time around we're talking about the new beta SplitStore feature that landed in Lotus version 1.17.1. Anyone running a Lotus daemon node will know that the chain store can get pretty large surprisingly quickly. By default, Lotus runs a monolithic data store, and this works great, but managing this data store and keeping it optimized can be time consuming and likely cause system downtime, and nobody likes downtime. The new SplitStore feature is a powerful alternative to the monolithic data store, which optimizes performance, simplifies management, and can even free up valuable fast storage space for other really important tasks like sealing and proving. Let's take a quick look at how it works. So the monolithic Lotus daemon currently stores all chain data in a single data store located in your Lotus repo. This folder needs to be on a fast and usually expensive storage media, and it needs to be actively monitored to ensure that it doesn't grow too large and have a negative impact on overall performance. The SplitStore feature turns this monolithic data store into two separate data stores, a new hot store and a new cold store. The cold store can be looked at as historical chain data that depending on your use case rarely if ever needs to be accessed, and the new hot store which contains the current and recent chain data that is really important for ongoing immediate node operations. Now as the chain progresses, the new SplitStore feature will automatically move the older chain data, also known as out of scope data, out of the hot store into the cold store, and this makes sure that the hot store folder always stays within a consistent default size range. And because data access to the cold store is considerably less than the hot store, the cold store folder can be moved to far less expensive and generally more available storage like standard spinning disks. And of course, this has absolutely zero negative impact on the overall performance of your node. So having a chain data folder that stays within a consistent size range is obviously far better. Considerably less pruning and importing of snapshots, and therefore far less downtime as a result of chain management. So let's have a look at how we can enable and manage the SplitStore feature. The first step is to stop your Lotus daemon and download a fresh lightweight snapshot. All the instructions for doing this can be found in the Lotus Docs chain management page shown here. SplitStore settings can be found in your Lotus daemon config toml file, which is usually in the .lotus repo folder. The section we are looking for is entitled Chain Store. If you don't immediately see the Chain Store config section in your own Lotus config toml file, remember that you can simply run the Lotus config default command, which shows all of the current settable config options available to you. You can just copy the Chain Store section over to your own Lotus config toml file. The first setting we need to change is Enable SplitStore. Remember to uncomment the line and simply set the value to true. The next setting we need to change is Cold Store type, and for this you have two options. The default setting is Universal. This will split the data store into a hot and cold store as discussed earlier, but by default all out of scope items within the cold store will be retained for future reference. And of course these are now cold store items, so they can be stored on slower, less expensive storage media. There are also options to periodically prune the cold store, which I'll discuss in just a moment. Setting discard will cause any out of scope chain data to be immediately deleted. So which type do I choose? For storage providers who have no need to perform additional queries on historical chain data, the discard option is absolutely fine. Deleting out-of-scope chain items has absolutely zero negative impact on ongoing SP operations, and this is great as it completely removes the necessity to perform any further time-consuming chain pruning going forward. Most SPs who use SplitStore, including me, use the discard option. For developers and node operators who do need to query historical chain data, you need to set Universal. This will still provide the considerable benefits of the SplitStore feature, such as moving the bulky cold store to slowed storage media, but you will retain the ability to perform historical chain queries. But what if you only need a limited period of chain data? For example, I don't want to have to sit the entire chain if I'm only performing queries on data for the last couple of weeks. Well, that is where the next config option comes in, which is Enabled Cold Store Auto Prune. Setting this option to true, whilst also using the Universal Cold Store type, will enable automatic pruning of the cold store at a frequency of your own choosing. The remaining settable SplitStore options allow you to do fine-tuning settings such as retention and compaction frequency to your own unique requirements, and these work in conjunction with the three main settings that we have just discussed. We really think you're going to love the new SplitStore feature and the considerable time and resource saving capabilities that it brings. You can find all of the SplitStore documentation on the Lotus doc site at the link shown on screen now, and always feel free to reach out at any time in the Filecoin Slack Phil Lotus Help channel if you have any questions or just need a bit of guidance. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.